So as we're giving others a chance to join, I will note that I'm Jessie Moore. I'm at Elon University in the United States. Earl Abramson is also on as my co-editor and co-facilitator today. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Jess. It's certainly a wonderful opportunity to be here, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Just to signpost exactly what we're going to be taking you through in the next hour, we want to tell the story of what TLI is, introduce our team, and then focus 3, 4, and 5 are going to be our breakout rooms, focus really on what it takes to write for the journal, to review for the journal, and then to signpost what working with the journal means. And then we're going to do that under the umbrella of the associate editor. And you can see on screen, we've got Chris Knorr, who currently serves in that role. And today's a really exciting day because the latest edition of new articles has just been added to the journal. So we'll signpost that when we come to those slides. So I'll start off and just introduce the team and then hand over to Jessie. So the TLI team is made up of a number of important colleagues. Jessie and myself co-edit the journal. We receive the articles, review them at an initial stage, and then we pass them on to the 10 associates, as you can see. And they play an important role in helping us decide where the articles go, who gets to read them, review them, and then they collate the decisions that are then made. So it's the work of multiple ideas, multiple views, and multiple people bringing it together to bring you the outputs that we're proud of. But that's just part of the team. Jessie will tell you behind the scenes who's involved.
So once an article is accepted for publication, it goes to our production team. And that's led by Allie, who is our production manager. She works with 2 undergraduate editorial assistants, Jope and Sean, who then do the first pass at preparing manuscripts for copy editing and for the production. They make sure that you've aligned it with the style guide. They might pose some questions back to you if there are things that we need to follow up with you on. After they've done a first pass, it goes to Angela for formal copy editing. She is a professional writer. She consults for a number of different organizations, and we're fortunate to have her working with TLI now for almost 3 years, if I remember correctly. And so it's been nice to have her as a stable member of that part of the team. And then David has been doing some special projects for us, and you'll see some representations of his work when we talk a little bit more about the journal in just a moment.
So the team, as you've seen, the editorial team, the production team, and then another important component is the board, the editorial board. And many colleagues, you may recognize the names, they are scholars in SOTL, but one thing we do want to mention is that TLI is the flagship journal for iSOTL. And many of these colleagues have served at the iSOTL board, but they've also been in the roles that Jess and myself play. For example, Kelly Scrum, you may be able to see there, and Katarina Martison were the former co-editors, and before them, the founders of the journal, Nancy Chick and Gary Poole, and we'll be speaking about those awards named in honor of these 2 colleagues right at the end. So this board is really important because they help to shape the future of the journal, but they also help to review articles and help us to make some important decisions about how the journal is panning out. So we're a big, happy family. Let's go on to our story. Over to you, Jessie.
Thank you. So we are celebrating 13 years with the journal, and you can see our updated stats. These are through May 31st, 2025. Our reporting year is June 1st through May 31st. And in our first 13 years, we've published 413 articles by 818 unique authors and from 38 countries. And we'll have a little bit more detail on that in just a moment. If we look at just the last year, so June 1st, 2024 through May 31st, we had over 116 abstract views and 44 articles published. So that's great. Fun fact is that while Peter Felton's article is still on the principles of Sodal, is still one of the most frequently downloaded, it has been taken over by Lori et al.'s moving towards inclusive learning and teaching as the one that has had the most abstract views. So a little bit of shift there. But Felton still has had a lot of downloads. We see it referenced quite a bit. So good reach with the articles. If we think about our publication process, I talked with you a little bit about our production team. Here's what the timeline looks like. So typically this was our 2024 data, but it was 14 days from submission to an initial editorial decision, which is when Oral or I pass it on to one of the associate editors and they decide, yes, we send it out to review, or maybe it's not quite in line with TLI and we either say, why don't you consider another journal? Or more often, we say, here are some things to think about if you want to resubmit to TLI. We really try to take a developmental approach to support you in making it a strong fit for the journal and something that readers will really want to interact with. And so that does mean that we have a pretty rich review process. You may actually have an article go through review a couple times as you're really engaging with reviewer feedback and refining your submission. But even with that process, in 2024, our average time from initial submission to publication was 10 months. And the last stat there is how many days it's been with us. So of that 10 months, a lot of it is actually the authors taking the feedback they've received and using it to revise their manuscript. For this current year, we wanted to see how some of our new initiatives might be impacting that timeline. So for example, we had a special section on trust, which takes a little bit of a different kind of work to make sure that it is cohesive and it appears in a timely manner. We also had our first experiment with an article that had multiple abstracts, including one in Spanish, representing the author's home language. We were happy to see that all of our production timelines actually decreased. So you can see that those numbers went down in terms of how much time from submission to initial editorial decision, the average time with the journal, and the average production time. And we're also happy to see that that we've had a lot of increase in submissions, but that also is increasing the diversity of articles in the journal. So in this last report year, 56% of institutions that authors represented were new to the journal, and 57% of the countries represented are new to the journal. 80% of the authors who published in that June through May period had not previously published in TLI. And then one additional interesting takeaway is 63% reflect collaborations by interdisciplinary teams. So we're really excited to see that while we have increased the number of submissions, we're also increasing the diversity represented by those submissions. And I'll turn it back to Earl for these next two slides.
Thank you, Jesse. So the key thing about the journal is we adopt a rolling approach to it. So when articles are ready, the articles are read and reviewed, a decision is made, and then when the article is ready, it goes out. It's published on our online platform. So what it means, when the journal first started, we had set times during a year when you could expect the next edition. But now it rolls out and we have one for an entire year, and we signpost when new articles are coming out. What that enables us to do at the journal is bring new work out in a timely approach. So in other words, when work is ready, it goes out, and that means it reaches the audience sooner than waiting for set cycles during a year. So that's the one thing we're really proud of, this rolling approach to ensuring the articles are out on time. Just hot off the press, the latest articles came out this morning, and you can see that we've got a range of articles there, from we had writing groups and editorial around the writing groups, to some of the articles that were created during that writing group. And if you look at Scrum, the second from the bottom, that is the new poster that we have brought out. And Chris Knorr, who's on the screen, is responsible for helping us bring the poster application, the artifacts, to the journal as well. So we'll speak about in the next few slides the formats we have. And one of the new advances we have in the journal is to publish posters as well. So just to show you the scope and the breadth of some of the latest articles that were published this morning. Anyway, we're an open access journal, which means we are not behind a paywall, and that's important for our thinking and our work, because we want to make the work accessible. And we are hosted, the journal is hosted on a platform, as you can see at the bottom of that slide, by the University of Calgary, which is free hosting for us at this point, and we are grateful that they are able to host the journal for us in an open access manner.
And that hosting is contingent on us being a diamond level open access journal, which means that we also do not charge authors to publish in open access. So, and no cost for readers, no cost for authors. It's free to access and free to submit for everybody. So I mentioned our increase in volume, and you can see that reflected there. The first, on the left side of the slide, is how many articles were in our production queue on that date. And so you can see that we've really tripled the number of articles that are in the production queue. And that does create a slight tension for the journal, because while it is free to submit and free to read, there are still production costs. We introduced you to the production team. They need to make a living. So we do have costs for copy editing, for layout, etc. One of the ways, and I should also pause and say that a big portion of that cost is funded by iSodal through membership dues, through conference income, etc. And then the co-editors institutions have also historically been able to support hiring editorial assistants to support the work of the journal. But with that increase, we are seeing a tension in terms of the impact on the budget. And so we have recently moved to limiting the number of articles that we publish each month. It is too soon to see how that might impact that time frame from submission to publication, but we just want to be transparent that as we try to be financially responsible for the journal while also trying to get articles out quickly, we have had to buffer that just a little bit to make sure that we are staying within the budget for the journal. So very quickly, we have two awards. One is the Gary Poole Award to recognize distinguished reviewers. Gary was one of the inaugural founders of the journal, co-editors of the journal. Anytime you submit to TLI, if you have a review that is very helpful, we ask that you consider nominating that reviewer for the award. It is a double masked review process, so you won't know that reviewer's name, but you can say, hey, reviewer B on this round of submission offered really helpful feedback, and I'd like to nominate them. And that's enough for us to look up who that is and include them in the process for selection for that award. We also have the Nancy Chick Award that recognizes the Article of the Year. Both of these awards are announced at the annual conference and then are announced more broadly to iSodal's membership after that. So you can watch for an announcement on the Nancy Chick Award soon. And the journal is indexed by all of our major indexing tools. You can see the list there, lots of ways that you can search for publications in the journal and ensure that it's coming up when others are looking for things related to the work that you're doing. And that deep indexing also contributes to citations. You can see in the last report year, TLI received over 1,700 citations, bringing us to a total of over 8,500 citations. So as a 13-year-old journal, I think that that's a very healthy number, particularly given that we only shifted to open access about 7-8 years ago. So